Have you ever been told that something as ordinary as a potato could be quietly damaging your kidneys, so you pushed it off your plate without a second thought? And yet no one ever explained what's actually harming your kidneys every single day. Because here's the part most people in America don't hear until it's too late. Kidney disease doesn't begin with pain. It doesn't begin with dramatic symptoms. It begins silently with small, daily choices that slowly strain the tiny filters inside your body until one day your lab numbers change and you're told your function has declined. And by that point, the damage didn't happen overnight. It built up over years of misunderstanding what truly supports your kidneys and what quietly overwhelms them. I'm Dr. Mark Ellis, and in my years of working with patients across this country, I've seen how fear of the wrong foods can be just as harmful as eating the wrong ones. People eliminate entire food groups because they heard one headline, one social media clip, one alarming claim. But what if the truth is more nuanced and far more empowering? What if some of the foods you've been avoiding aren't the enemy at all, but could actually support your blood pressure, stabilize your metabolism, and reduce oxidative stress when prepared correctly? Today, I'm going to show you exactly how 4 common root vegetables foods already sitting in American kitchens can either burden your kidneys or help protect them, depending entirely on how you use them. And what you're about to learn may completely change the way you look at one of the most misunderstood foods in your pantry, because sometimes the difference between damage and protection isn't the ingredient, it's the knowledge behind it. White potatoes are not the villain most people think they are. And that misunderstanding alone has quietly reshaped millions of American dinner plates in ways that may not actually protect the kidneys at all. When patients first sit across from me and tell me they've cut out all potatoes because they heard they're bad for kidney health, I always ask one simple question: bad compared to what? Because a baked potato is not a plate of fries, and a boiled portion, controlled white potato is metabolically very different from ultra-processed carbohydrates that spike blood sugar and inflame blood vessels. I remember a 58-year-old patient who eliminated potatoes entirely after seeing a headline online. In their place, he started eating more packaged low-fat snack foods, thinking he was making a heart-healthy choice. 6 months later, his blood pressure was higher, his A1C had crept up, and his labs showed early signs of metabolic strain. The issue wasn't the potato, it was the loss of a whole potassium-rich food replaced by refined starch and sodium. According to data from the USDA, a medium white potato provides a meaningful amount of potassium, a mineral that helps balance sodium and support healthy blood pressure. And as the National Kidney Foundation consistently emphasizes, uncontrolled hypertension is one of the leading drivers of chronic kidney damage. When blood pressure remains elevated, the glomeruli, those tiny filtering units in the kidneys, experience continuous stress, like delicate mesh screens under high water pressure, day after day. White potatoes also contain vitamin C and natural antioxidants that help combat oxidative stress. Research discussed by institutions such as the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health shows that antioxidant-rich diets are associated with improved vascular function and reduced inflammatory markers. Since the kidneys are dense with microscopic blood vessels, protecting vascular integrity is not optional, it is foundational. But perhaps the most overlooked benefit is what happens after cooking. When white potatoes are cooked and then cooled, part of their starch converts into resistant starch, which behaves more like fiber. Resistant starch feeds beneficial gut bacteria and may improve insulin sensitivity. And considering that diabetes remains the #1 cause of chronic kidney disease in the United States, stabilizing blood sugar is not a minor detail, it is a central strategy. Now, context matters. For individuals with advanced chronic kidney disease or elevated potassium levels, portion size and preparation become critical. Double boiling, peeling, soaking, boiling, and discarding the water can significantly reduce potassium content, transforming a feared food into a controlled kidney-conscious option. Preparation is the difference between stress and support. And that's where the real conversation begins, because white potatoes aren't just about potassium or starch. They reveal something deeper about how we misunderstand whole foods in a processed world. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because there's another factor hiding in plain sight that may protect your kidneys even more powerfully than potassium itself. If white potatoes revealed how preparation changes everything red potatoes, take that lesson one step deeper, because now we're talking about your blood vessels, and your kidneys live and die by the health of those vessels. The difference isn't just color, it's chemistry. Red potatoes contain anthocyanins, the same antioxidant compounds found in berries, and these pigments aren't cosmetic, they're protective. They help defend the delicate lining of your arteries against oxidative stress, which is one of the silent accelerators of kidney decline in America today. I once worked with a woman in her early 60s who had borderline hypertension and early microalbuminuria. She wasn't eating fast food every day. She wasn't reckless. She was simply living the normal American diet: refined bread, white rice, ultra-processed carbs. When we swapped some of those starches for portion-controlled red potatoes, skin-on prepared with minimal sodium, her post-meal glucose spikes improved within weeks. Why does that matter? Because repeated glucose spikes damage the endothelium. The inner lining of blood vessels, and research published in journals like Hypertension has consistently linked endothelial dysfunction with increased risk of chronic kidney disease progression. The kidneys are essentially networks of microscopic vessels. Protect the vessels and you protect the filter. Now let's be clear, for individuals prone to oxalate kidney stones, the skin may need to be moderated. Boiling and discarding the water can reduce mineral load significantly. Context is power, preparation is strategy. And if you've ever avoided red potatoes because you thought carbs are bad, I want you to pause and ask yourself, was it the potato or the processing? But just knowing that red potatoes protect blood vessels isn't enough, because there's another connection, one that most people completely overlook, and it doesn't start in your arteries at all. It starts in your gut. And what happens there may be even more decisive for your kidneys than antioxidants themselves. If red potatoes taught us that protecting blood vessels protects the kidneys, Taro forces us to zoom out even further, because sometimes kidney health doesn't begin in your arteries at all. It begins in your gut. And this is the connection most people never hear about until their kidney function is already declining. Taro is not trendy, it's not viral on social media, but metabolically it's powerful. Rich in fiber and naturally occurring resistant starch, Taro feeds beneficial gut bacteria, and that matters more than you might think. I once worked with a patient struggling with early-stage chronic kidney disease, who also had chronic bloating and irregular digestion. His labs showed elevated inflammatory markers and borderline insulin resistance. When we increased whole food fiber sources like properly cooked taro and reduced ultra-processed carbohydrates, his digestion stabilized, and over time, his inflammatory markers improved. Why does that matter for the kidneys? Because emerging research in nephrology highlights the gut-kidney axis, a bidirectional relationship where imbalanced gut bacteria can produce uremic toxins such as indoxyl sulfate and p-cresyl sulfate. These compounds circulate in the bloodstream and increase the burden on already vulnerable kidneys. Studies published in journals like Kidney International suggest that higher dietary fiber intake is associated with lower systemic inflammation and slower progression of kidney disease. Fiber doesn't just help digestion, it may reduce toxin production upstream before the kidneys ever have to filter them. But taro must be prepared correctly. It contains natural calcium oxalate crystals when raw, which can irritate tissues if undercooked. Boiling thoroughly neutralizes this risk and makes it both safe and supportive. Context once again changes everything. So let me ask you, have you ever dismissed a food simply because it wasn't familiar or fashionable? Drop a comment below if you've avoided taro before. I read those and your experience matters. Because here's the truth, supporting your gut may be one of the smartest indirect strategies to protect your kidneys. But knowing this alone still isn't enough, because there's one final root vegetable often overlooked in American kitchens that may influence detox pathways in a way most people never consider. And that final piece could change how you think about kidney protection entirely. If taro showed us that your gut can influence your kidneys, Rutabaga reveals something even more surprising. Kidney protection is not just about what you filter, it's about what you neutralize before filtration even begins. And this is where most conversations about kidney health stop far too early. Rutabaga is rarely part of the modern American diet, yet metabolically it carries a quiet advantage. It's significantly lower in oxalates than many common starchy vegetables. For individuals prone to kidney stones or concerned about mineral burden, that detail matters. But that's not the real reason it deserves attention. Rutabaga belongs to the Brassica family, the same family as broccoli and cabbage, and that means it contains glucosinolates, compounds that support phase 2 detoxification pathways in the liver. Why does liver detox matter to the kidneys? Because every toxin that isn't processed efficiently upstream becomes part of the filtration workload downstream. I once had a patient with early declining kidney function who focused obsessively on protein restriction, yet ignored overall dietary inflammation and toxin exposure. When we shifted his focus toward increasing cruciferous vegetables, including roasted rutabaga, while reducing ultra-processed foods, his inflammatory markers improved within months. Studies published in journals like Nutrients and the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition suggest that cruciferous vegetable intake is associated with improved antioxidant capacity and reduced systemic oxidative stress. And remember, oxidative stress is not abstract. It directly damages the microvascular structures inside the kidneys over time. Rutabaga is also rich in vitamin C and fiber, supporting both vascular integrity and digestive health. And unlike many higher potassium root vegetables, it can be portioned more flexibly for those who must monitor mineral intake carefully. Preparation remains key. Steaming or roasting without excessive sodium preserves its protective qualities. It's not flashy, it's not trendy, but it works quietly, and quiet protection is often what the kidneys need most. Now here's the part most people don't expect: protecting detox pathways and reducing inflammatory burden may influence long-term kidney resilience more than obsessively cutting out single foods. Have you ever focused on restriction while overlooking restoration? Think about that. Because understanding Rutabaga's role is powerful, but just knowing this still isn't enough, because there's one final principle that determines whether these foods become protection or just another missed opportunity. If there's one message I want you to walk away with today, it's this: your kidneys are not fragile by default. They are resilient, responsive, and deeply influenced by the small decisions you make every single day. You don't have to fear every carbohydrate. You don't have to eliminate entire food groups out of panic. What you need is clarity. You need context. You need to understand how preparation, portion size, and overall metabolic balance determine whether a food becomes stress or support. If you found this helpful, I encourage you to save this video right now. There may come a moment at your next grocery trip, your next lab result, your next doctor's appointment, when you'll want to revisit this information with a clear mind. And if you care about protecting your kidneys, your blood pressure, your metabolism, and your long-term health, make sure you subscribe to this channel. I share evidence-based medical insights here, regularly explained in a way that helps you make smarter decisions without fear or confusion. Your kidneys work quietly for you 24 hours a day. They filter, regulate, balance, and protect without applause, without rest. The least we can do is give them the nutrients and knowledge they deserve. Remember, kidney decline is often silent, but so is prevention. And the most powerful changes rarely look dramatic. They look consistent. You are not powerless. You are not too late. And with the right information, you can take control of your kidney health starting today.